thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and let's get it popping. All right, first off, we got to get one thing out of the way. Doug Peterson doesn't care about the preseason, okay? Anymore, at least. In his first season with the Eagles, 2016, he did. They went 2-4. Since he changed his approach the next year in 2017, he's 4-8 and 2-6 over his last 2 seasons when he was the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. And he really doesn't care about winning in week 1, and it has shown. Peterson's Eagles went 0-3 in week 1 in his last 3 seasons as the head coach, losing every game by at least 15 points, okay? They got smoked in all of those games. I think they gave up like 24 points, 31 and 31 in all of those games. Not to mention, he scarcely used his starters, if at all, in any of those games. And now he only has 3 preseason games as opposed to 4 that we had in those prior seasons. So it gives him less time to actually evaluate the players who are battling for a roster spot. He already said Trevor Lawrence not playing, CJ Beathard returning from an injury, not playing, Travis Etienne not playing. So at quarterback, it leaves us with former 6th round draft pick Jake Luton and USFL quarterback and former NFL quarterback who never took a snap, Kyle Sloter. Now, maybe I have different interpretations of marvelous, stupendous, and star, which is how Sloter's USFL season for 2022 with the New Orleans Breakers was described in articles as I was reading up on this guy. And I admittedly didn't watch much USFL. And by much, I mean I watched exactly none of it. But this dude averaged 6.2 yards per attempt, okay? He had a negative touchdown to interception ratio in 9 starts in the USFL. So I guess I'm just missing something. That's Jacksonville for you. Oh, and by the way, with this being the preseason, if you're going to bet this game, do it at BetMGM if you haven't yet. Because if you sign up and deposit using the link right in the pinned comment, you get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. What does that mean? It means that you could put $10, $20, $50, $100, $1,000 in, whatever you're comfortable with. Doesn't matter if you have pocket change to spend or as much as you want. When you place that bet, if you lose, you get your money back. If you win, you won. Essentially, you could go to sleep in the middle of this game. Maybe you had a couple too many beers and wake up the next morning, no worse for wear. You win, you win. You lose, you still win because they give you your money back. Take advantage of every single promotional opportunity that these books are giving you. They want your business and they'll give you free money in order to do it. Use the link, pin comment, sign up, deposit. All you have to do when you bet this game is watch it or don't. Doesn't matter because you get your money back up to $1,000 risk-free bet, BetMGM. On the other side, you've got
Jordan Klein's in the chat. Unbelievable.
You know who's a dick?
Jordan Klein.
Yo, we're back, baby. Welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL Hall of Fame preseason showdown. I'm Dave Loughran. Along with me, they call him the preseason pioneer. They don't, but they should. Matt Kajeski, we're back, baby. What's up, man?
Man, I am really excited. It's been a long time since we did one of these shows. And preseason, I mean, low level of football. It's not USFL. It's not AAF. It's not college, but I sure love preseason. In the Hall of Fame game, we get to look back on all the players we've used in some of those leagues. A lot of them are playing tonight and will be playing in the next couple of weeks. So I'm excited to get into it.
Me too, dude. Already broke down some betting. Excited for that over on the Odd Shopper channel. Going Raiders tonight, Matt. Tell you that much.
You uncovered some pretty good nuggets I didn't know about these Raiders. It's one I'm going to be tailing you on.
We should talk about that. Then we'll get into showdown strategy for the preseason, or just preseason strategy, because that's where your expertise comes into play. But this is an odd game. And by the way, glad to be back with you guys. It's been a couple months. It feels odd, to be honest with you. Glad to be back. Happy to see all the familiar faces in chat. So not only does Doug Peterson not care about the preseason, but this is Josh McDaniels' home high school stadium that he's playing in. Okay. The Canton McKinley Bulldogs. If that's not enough, his dad was the head coach of the Canton McKinley Bulldogs while he played, is the most winningest coach in history of the Canton McKinley Bulldogs, and will be in attendance with the family tonight to watch his own son coach an NFL game in the same stadium that he coached him as a kid. I mean, if that's not something, then I don't know what else is.
I mean, we also have one coach, McDaniel, being the one that's extremely tight-lipped about tonight's game. We don't know who's playing. Mm-hmm. We can make some assumptions. Like, we're probably not going to see Devontae Adams, surprise to everyone else, but he's not talking about this game. He's not telling you who's in the field and who's going to be on the field, who's not. And then on the other side, you mentioned that we have a coach that doesn't really care about it. He's already ruled out a lot of starters. Schefter just tweeted an inactive list. There is a slew of players, not even starters. Some of them are backups, like Chris Mannertz is inactive for this game. So we're going to be looking at a lot of third stringers in the Jaguars. I like this bet a lot.
For sure. And you know what? It's preseason. Anything can happen. Like, you're going to have some pretty bad players out there, but sometimes you see something like this, you got to take a shot. One more thing. Doug Peterson changed up his coaching strategy in the preseason after his rookie coaching season with the Eagles. Since then, he's 4-8 in the preseason. He's 2-6 over his last 2 years. Mind you, 2020, no preseason because of COVID, and then he wasn't coaching last year. But he's 0-3 over his last week 1 games, and he's lost all of them by at least 15 points. So when we say he doesn't give a shit, this guy really does not give a shit about the preseason. And like you just alluded to, a lot of players out today. So let's make this happen. A little strategy talk, then we'll go position by position, get you guys set and ready. Hit the thumbs up. We're at 72. We got almost 600 people watching for a preseason Hall of Fame game between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Jacksonville Jaguars. So show us some love now that we're back. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and hey, if you want to join the channel too, you can do that as well. Get the free super chats each month, the custom emojis, the sweet badges. That's what it comes down to. It's like riding the bike, Matt. Like, I never stopped. Anyway, let's talk strategy here. The biggest thing for me is, and we'll get into strategy for showdowns, but first, when it comes to the preseason, all the pricing is the same, and you're not looking to play the best players, right? Or too worried about defensive matchups or You're mostly worried about just figuring out who gets the most time, who gets the most reps.
Yeah, that's 100% it. And it's really tricky. There's not one website or a place that posts this information. You really have to dive back through beat reporters, figure out who's playing with what squad, who got dinged up in practice, might be limited or out of a game, because we don't have just inactives like a normal Sunday. So it's a little bit of a task to try to find these, which you and I have both been digging a lot into it since we've been looking at the preseason. But then you have to look positionally too. Defense is where I think we should start when we talk strategy. Unlike regular season, defense has a high ceiling and a high floor for preseason. It's the only position that's going to be on the field for 100% of snaps. Kickers, sometimes they're in battle, sometimes they're not. I think kickers are kind of right in line with defense as long as you don't have a battle, but they also don't have the same upside. They don't have the touchdown upside. And another trend in the preseason is we get a lot of turnovers, a lot of them, a lot of scores on defense, a lot of fumbles, a lot of interceptions with some of the low-level talent we're out there. So I think first and foremost, you want to highlight the defenses and kickers as long as they're not in competition, because they will be on there for the entirety of the game. And then from there, you really have to look into those practice reports and figure out who's playing. Yeah,
you guys 100% need to read Matt's articles when they come out. Shit, I would pull it up right now and read it while you're listening. I'm telling you, it's a banger. And dude, I'm dead serious, man. Like, the amount of stuff that you unearth is shocking for a preseason game. It's impressive, and no one else is going to put that type of time in. So check it out, watch this video, and do all of that. Speaking of turnovers, right? Pretty good segue into the quarterback position, because when you look at a guy like Nick Mullins for the Las Vegas Raiders, as a pro, he actually hasn't been that bad, right? Like, 7.7 yards per attempt, 26 to 22 touchdowns to interception ratio in 17 career starts in the regular season. But last year, and you actually reminded me of this, right? You actually reminded me of this. That preseason performance for the Philadelphia Eagles was outright putrid.
Nick Mullins, I think, is their third string quarterback. I think he's pretty clearly behind Jarrett Stidham. And the stats you just referenced make me wonder, the regular season he had was actually decent, but it was in a Kyle Shanahan offense. Was it just the product of Kyle Shanahan getting, the different skill cast when he played there, but his offense, he tries to get guys like Raheem Mostert in space and let the playmakers create once they have the ball in their hands, taking some of the responsibility away from the quarterback. So I kind of wonder if that is just an anomaly, and now teams have sort of figured out Mullins. And when he's actually asked to lead a real offense like last year's preseason, we start to see, okay, 55% completion percentage, 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And this
dude, it was so bad.
It's on like 75 snaps too.
And you remember how chalky he was too?
Yeah, he was in one of those slates where I think they had 2 active quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Luckily, the Raiders are going to have 3 active quarterbacks tonight. So we don't necessarily need to hone in on Nick Mullins unless you're playing GPPs.
So 2-part question here. One, who do we hone in on quarterback? Because you got Jake Luton, who's probably going to get some snaps, but CJ Beathard's like coming off an injury. He's not playing. Trevor Lawrence isn't playing. And we'll get into all of the other inactives, important ones for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We don't know for Las Vegas, but Luton, what do we do with it?
He's the best play at quarterback. So when you look at this sort of hierarchy of positions we want to be considering, you're starting with defenses. Those are the most important ones. They're also the chalkiest for good reason. Then you're looking at kickers. On average, in all the preseason games we have, at least in the last 5 years, defenses score the most on average. Kickers score the second most. Quarterbacks aren't far behind kickers. It's about a 0.3 of a fantasy point difference on DraftKings. But you also want to highlight quarterbacks that are going to be playing a majority of the game. For Jacksonville, we have 2 active quarterbacks. For Las Vegas, we have 3. So we kind of have a better idea who's going to be playing for Jacksonville. And when you break down the 2 signal callers they have, Jake Luton and Kyle Sloter. Sloter was signed to the team just a few weeks ago. I think just a little over a week ago, if I'm not mistaken. He's a USFL veteran, and he's a player from the USFL who threw more interceptions than touchdowns at a lower level of competition. And he's certainly going to be facing better competition tonight in the preseason than he did in the USFL.
Dude, I've got something great for you on Kyle Sloter, right? So admittedly, I had no fucking clue who this guy was. I had heard his name because I think he was on practice squads for 18 years in the NFL, but never took a snap. But I didn't know anything about him. So I pull his name up on the Google, and I see USFL star, right? Signed by the Jaguars. Spectacular season out of USFL star, gets him a roster spot with the Jaguars. Someone else, excellent campaign, got him to the semifinals. It's like, okay, there's 8 teams. So I'm like, man, this guy must have had a killer season. It wrapped my head into a pretzel trying to figure out what the hell I was missing. He 9 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. He averaged 6.2 yards per attempt. If that is a star and spectacular in the USFL, I'm glad I didn't watch a single minute of it this season.
The only thing you missed was good betting and DFS opportunities. The football certainly wasn't great, and I think it's going to be better in the preseason. But I mean, you want to compare him to Luton. He's been decent in the preseason, nothing great. I mean, he's the third stringer for a reason, but he threw for 190 yards, 2 scores last year. He didn't really have any blemishes in his games. That's important. He's not mobile, but the most important thing here is our intuition with these quarterbacks goes right in line with what we've heard coming out of Jacksonville. You've heard more rhetoric that Luton's battling for the QB2 with Beathard instead of like Sloter's battling Luton for the QB4. It's pretty clear to me that Sloter's going to get cut, but Luton might actually play for this team. I'd say it's unlikely, but he is definitely battling Beathard. And they're going to take a long look at him because he is actually in play for that QB2. I think he's kind of 50% of the snaps is his floor, and you could see as high as like 60 to 70, which I don't think we can say about a single other signal caller. So in terms of DFS, I think behind the defenses and the kickers, he's right there, and he's a strong captain play. He's a strong flex play. I think you can use him across formats.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you too, as far as captains go, since this is a single game slate. Usually you look at a quarterback when they're the same price as everyone else and you go, all right, easy decision, quarterback. But is that not the case? Like, would you rather captain defenses over quarterbacks in a vacuum?
Personally, yes. Just on average across preseasons, defenses score higher than quarterbacks. So that ceiling and floor combination, defenses will be the answer for me. But in this instance, we do have a quarterback whose median projections around 50% of the snaps. We haven't projected a little higher than that. So he does project very well. And I won't fault you for using Luton in the captain. I think he's solid there too.
All right. Would you say Mullins is the second best option though at quarterback?
Yes. And so you're dealing with 3 quarterbacks for Las Vegas, but digging into their roster, Stidham, he's a guy that has experience with McDaniel coming over from New England. I think he's pretty clearly the backup. And when you look at the 2 players behind him, I don't really see there being too much of a debate. Mullins is going to be the 3. Garbers is going to get cut. Garbers was horrific in college in the Pac-12. He played at Cal. Wasn't very good as a passer. His only redeeming qualities, he's good rushing the ball. So if he's out there for like a quarter, he could be viable just with his legs. But I think tonight, Nick Mullins is going to get the most snaps of the 3 quarterbacks because they know what they have with Stidham. He's been with New England for years, and he's coming over with his coach. He knows exactly what he offers. Maybe we see a quarter and a half out of him. All right. Mullins as the 3rd string, he could play as much as a half.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, you could do worse at quarterback for a guy that might play a half. You know, like the guy was an NFL starter for half a season for 17 games in his career. You don't generally get that at quarterback in the preseason. So I think you could definitely do worse. All right. We'll talk running backs here. This is where it gets real interesting. Before we do though, some sick promos going on right now. Matt knows we just added an NFL promo. Get you 1 week for a single $1 of Stokastic plus NFL Weekly. 1 week. And we have NFL preseason projections, which are very good. Matt Gajeski right here, as I said, the preseason pioneer, does them on his own. A single $1, just use the promo code preseason. But instead of doing that, make it much easier for you. Just go to stokastic.com/promos. Mike, if you want to throw the link in the chat, you can do that. Stokastic.com/promos. You get that. You could see the Puppy 3 promo, $1 for our entire best ball package, or Night Owl, all one word, all caps, $1 for the MLB Plus weekly package, everything included. Got awesome stuff, all of them for a single $1 right now, whether it's NFL preseason projections, whether it's best ball, or whether it's baseball for the entire week. We got you. Check it out. All right, running back. Oh, and we got free content tonight. The Night Owl. I hadn't done a show in so long. I was like, I don't know what this is. But it turns out that the DK Night Owl tool is all of our tools for the night slate: ownership, projections, top stack, top hitter, all of that, top pitcher tools, all on one page, and it's free tonight. So if you're playing the night slate, get in on that. All right, Matt, running backs. No Travis Etienne, no James Robinson as expected. Do you expect to see any starters for the Raiders? Or I should say any, guys that are going to get a decent amount of snaps in the regular season playing tonight?
I don't think it's more than a series, Max. And I honestly think we're going to see an inactive Devontae Adams, an inactive Kenyon Drake, especially coming off a season-ending injury, and an inactive Josh Jacobs. So when you look at the Raiders running back core, it's not so much what do we do with Josh Jacobs, what do we do with Kenyon Drake? It's how do we evaluate these backups? And unfortunately, we haven't gotten an injury report, which is actually big for this backfield because 2 of their ancillary pieces have been banged up. Zamir White was banged up about 5-6 days ago. He has since returned to practice, but there's always the question, this is a meaningless game. How much do they want to see out of Zamir White, especially coming off the injury? I tend to lean that he's going to play at least a little bit. This is a guy that doesn't have a guaranteed roster spot. He could be a practice squad level player. They have Josh Jacobs, they have Kenyon Drake, and then they also have Amir Abdullah, who's prime on special teams. Like he's going to have a role for this team, maybe as a kick return if he doesn't get beat out by somebody. That could kind of box out Zamir White if he doesn't play well in the preseason. So I do think we see him. The bigger question mark is Britton Brown. He was a 6th-round pick out of UCLA. He has not practiced since August 1st, and that kind of coincides with the Raiders' travel schedule to get to this game, walkthroughs. We haven't actually gotten a legit practice since he missed that day, and we still haven't gotten an inactives report. So I'm just over here scouring Twitter trying to figure out if Britton Brown's going to play.
So basically, with the running back situation in Las Vegas, is it worth rolling the dice on some of these guys and being like, hey, I think this could be our dude tonight? You know what I mean? It's because they got a lot of bodies back there and a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah. So when we dig into the guys outside of Jacobs, outside of Kenyon Drake, you have Amir Abdullah. I don't think we see a ton of him because he's a veteran. He's a special teamer. He's not going to play a major role in the backfield. You have Zamir White, who's injured, but he's a 4th-round pick. He's somebody they need to see. They did not bring back Josh Jacobs for his 5th-year option. He's going to be a free agent after this year, so they need to see if they have an in-house replacement. Britton Brown was a 7th-round pick. I think I said 6th round earlier. Excuse me there. He was the 251st overall pick, but he kind of has a similar skill set to Zamir, just a little less athletic. Then they have Brandon Bolden on the roster. He's a special teamer. He's a pass catching back. Again, he's got the New England familiarity. I don't think we see a ton of him. And then it's just Austin Walter. So you have a scenario where if Zamir White and Britton Brown are both hurt, Austin Walter could handle a huge opportunity share here. It's just so confusing right now, not knowing who's actually going to play. In the current situation we have not knowing, I'm just siding with Austin Walter. He's the safest. He's going to get cut from this team. We've seen him in the preseason before. He played a little bit with the 49ers after he came out of college with Rice, and he is a small back, 5'8", 197, but he plays on third downs. He can catch the ball too, which is very important for the preseason. So out of the 3 guys I'm expecting to play, again, tentatively expecting, Austin Walter is going to be the favorite for Las Vegas.
Do you think anyone gets like significantly more than a quarter?
Austin Walter might just by default, like if Britton Brown doesn't play, it's just Zamir White, just Austin Walter, and then whatever they decide to give Amir Abdullah.
Okay. And isn't White coming off? Wasn't he not practicing?
He returned to practice on July 31st, and he got 2 practices in before they started doing their walkthroughs and traveled to the stadium for this game. But again, it's just 2 practices. Do they decide to play it cautious or not?
Right.
This is where the tight-lipped McDaniel has not given us any information. And I'll be continuing to scour Twitter during the show, and hopefully we can get a beat reporter who's at the game telling us whether these guys are warming up or not. But so far, we've seen nothing.
All right. Talk about Jacksonville then. So again, no ETN, which makes perfect sense. Why would Doug play a guy? Why would he play him? No James Robinson. Similarly, why are you going to play him either? But then you've got someone in like Raquel Armstead who was out for the whole season with those COVID symptoms, and then a few other guys like Snoop Connor. This one to me is interesting because it feels like one of these guys could get a lot of work tonight. Who do you think that is?
I think this 3rd string back is a pretty tight battle right now between Raquel and Snoop. When camp opened, Raquel was the third string back, and then Snoop kind of played his way into the conversation. And I think he's the front runner right now. But this reminds me of like a Ramondre Stevenson situation from last year where you have an unsettled 3rd string back, 4th string back, and they're going to let these guys play and figure it out. All the beat reporters in Jacksonville are suggesting that both Raquel and Snoop are going to handle a fair amount of work tonight. I'm putting them both at a quarter at least, with upside for maybe a quarter and a half, before Mekhi Sargent and Nathan Cottrell, 2 guys that are surefire cut candidates. They'll probably handle the 4th quarter, but I think up until mid-3rd, you see Raquel and Snoop maybe just splitting series back and forth. These guys have a very similar profile. Snoop is 5'10", 220 pounds. Raquel's 5'11", 220 pounds. They're both pretty athletic. They're both bangers. That's going to be their role if they're on this team. Whoever makes the team, it's going to be like short yardage, goal line. So I think we see a lot of Snoop and Raquel. They're my 2 favorite backs right now.
So you play both of them in the same lineup?
You certainly can do that. That's something we probably should have highlighted at the beginning of the show. You and I talk about negative correlation a lot on showdowns and overall just correlation in general. Because of the chaotic nature and the unknown snaps for these guys, correlation doesn't matter a lot. So don't be scared from playing Snoop and Raquel in the same lineup. I wouldn't even be scared if you're playing GPPs and you want to get like Luton and Slaughter in the same lineup. It's a way to get unique. And especially with Snoop and Raquel, they both project well because we know they're both going to see a decent amount of work.
All right. Little recap here before we get to wide receivers. We'll talk tight ends. And yes, believe it or not, we're going to talk kickers as well, because we have to. Hey, if there's a kicking competition and you got 2 kickers out there, not exactly optimal, but one team that's not the case. To recap the first 2 positions, Jake Luton, your favorite quarterback, followed by Nick Mullins. And then 1 and 2 running backs are Snoop Connor and Raquel Armstead. Right now, yes, that's assuming Britton and Zamir White play. If they don't play, that would probably shoot Austin Walter right up to number 1 over for sure. Raquel and Snoop. I mean, will we get this news? I'm trying, man. There's people at this game. I don't know what the beat reporters are doing, but there are people that are paid to be there and cover these teams at this game. We got to figure that out, because that could be like a full half easily for this guy, for Walters. Yeah, I'm still waiting on this. All right. Well,
I'm on it, man. I've been refreshing Twitter nonstop.
Listen, I believe that I would rather nobody else refreshing Twitter and trying to unearth this information than you, Matt. It's tough. Anyway, but while we wait, get to wide receivers, tight ends, and all that good stuff. But first, a little awesome Hall of Fame action here. We like to shout out our people. We like it when you win, especially when you're rocking the awesome the Stokastic avatar. I told you it's been a while. So let's pull it up and I'll tell you how to win a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Just everything on the site. Well over $100 value. Not only that, but you get featured up here on the Hall of Fame and you get to brag and boast about it, that it happened. I mean, it's actually many people wait their whole lives to get up here and it just might be you. Download the Stokastic profile picture at stokastic.com/avatar. Simple as that. You win, you finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Doesn't matter. It could be a quarter arcade. It could be a nickel. Doesn't matter. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. You just can't chop it with a ton of people. Tweet your wins to us at Stokastic HOF. All right. And win a free month of Awesome Plus Platinum. We'll get you up here. Just like a bunch of people we have up today. First of all, the Colts. Steve Buzzard's been crushing. I think this is 100K. I think he just took down another 100K yesterday. I could be wrong, but I know he's on a heater right now. Steve Buzzard, Steve Buzzard does a lot of stuff behind the scenes here, and he comes on a lot of football shows too because he's smart. Mark Cato finished third with one lineup in the early slate. Thanks to all of the fellas, Josh and Ship My Money for the content, $3,000, huge win there. And then our boy Adam Scher, 115,000, splitting the live final UFC. Yeah, of course it was a fun event in Dallas. Thank you for the best team in the business, Daily Nuggets. Nothing fancy, but I'll take it. I was mentioned there. I don't know why, but thank you, Oscar, and congrats on that win. You've got Dan 1312 with the 30K win in MLB. I mean, they're rolling in lately. And then Shaky, $5,000 win. Never forget the real hero, Kevin Chappell. And then the last one here, because we got a lot. Aaron Brown finished 0.2 points from a takedown. Thanks to casting. They saw $125 win there. Like I said, and congrats, man. It could be 100,000. It could be $100, $50, doesn't matter. Hit us up, stokastic.com/avatar. Tweet your wins at Stokastic Hall of Fame. All right, Matt. Wide receivers. This is, before we even get into the actual players, how the hell do you try and break down what receivers are going to get opportunities and what receivers, like, because you first have to break down whether they're going to be on the field. But unlike running backs, that if they're in the backfield, they're getting the ball on running plays, receiver could be out there and still not get any work at all.
Yeah, and that's why we see them as the 4th position to target in this pecking order. Again, it's defenses 1, kickers 2, quarterbacks 3, 5, running backs 4, and receivers. They're the 5th in terms of average scoring based on this position in the preseason. So they're volatile. They have big ceilings. PPR matters a lot. So if you do find a player that does get targeted more than some of the other guys, it can be very valuable, but uncovering that player is very hard to do. Tonight, we have 8 active receivers for both teams, which also makes this challenging. Sometimes you can just narrow this down looking at teams that maybe have 5 or 6 receivers active. Tonight, we have the exact same on both sides with 8 active receivers apiece.
Yeah. New Book in chat said, I'm intrigued with the coaching battle. Both are great offensive minds. Don't be intrigued by this battle at all. The vanilla offense, particularly from Doug Peterson, he doesn't care. I promise you. They're not game planning for this, and watching tape for, I mean, maybe they are, but not in the sense that like they're actually trying to win this game. They want reps. They want to be able to evaluate these borderline, fringe guys, these bubble guys. And that was one last thing, because we got plenty of time, but I probably important for everybody watching anyway. How much of a difference does it make in terms of playing starters now that there's only 3 preseason games compared to when there used to be 4?
It just kind of changes the dress rehearsal. Teams kind of just shifted their days back. So a lot of teams use the second game as the dress rehearsal. And a guy like Doug Peterson, he just uses inter squad scrimmages now. So we have these joint practices across the NFL. Some of these teams, they don't care at all. Like Derek Carr last year, I know it's a new coaching staff, he didn't take a snap in the preseason. Sean McVay, his players, like even fringe starters, they don't even play a snap in the preseason. So I think that's the biggest difference, is you see some coaches shifting it back and some coaches just taking the stance that it doesn't matter at all. And I think we see that with one of the coaches tonight.
All right. So then let's get the one thing out of the way when it comes to some of these top receivers. You expect to see nothing from Devontae Adams, right? Or from Renfro, or from Christian Kirk's already out, actually. Let's start with Las Vegas because we just don't know. Among the starters, do you anticipate any of them playing?
Where Waller hasn't been practicing even, so we're not going to see Waller for sure. I would be shocked if we see Renfro and Adams. Same thing with Jacobs and Drake. We covered them, and we're certainly not going to see Carr.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't see that being the case whatsoever. So let's talk about the guys that are on the roster that will be getting playing time. Now, Demarcus Robinson and Keelan Cole, let's start with them. Is there any remote possibility that they get a lot of work, or are we going deep into the bowels of this roster?
I think we need to go deeper than Robinson and Cole. When you look at all of the receivers they have on the team right now, I think you can pretty confidently bet they're both making the roster. I don't think we really need to see much from either of them. They're both veterans at this point, and they know exactly what they're offering to the team. So I'm going past those two. If they play a little bit, I'm expecting just a series or two.
Okay. You ready to talk about the some of these guys? It's funny, like for a lot of people watching this, and even myself during the preseason, I look at a lot of this and I go, yeah, I don't know who that is. Now you're a college guy. You get deep into the college game. Are there ever players that you don't actually know who they are?
Yeah, I did a guy today. I think he's an Indianapolis tight end who played in the CFL. Got the call up. But most of these guys I know, every single player we're going to talk about today, I know from college.
Okay. Then talk to me about them. Let's break down this Las Vegas Raiders roster.
All right. So we're going to kind of dig into the beat reporter speak and go down the roster. So I think Matt Collins is a decent bet to make this roster. He's a veteran. He's receiving praise in camp. So I think he's the wide receiver 5. I think he plays middling snaps, maybe a quarter to 2 quarters. But I think they're going to take a longer look at some of these other guys. And there are players that have similar skill sets. 2 in particular, I think that could be battling for a 6 receiver spot if it's kept are Tyron Johnson and Justin Hall. These guys have a very similar skill set. We saw Tyron Johnson play a little bit with the Chargers before he got cut. He had like 1 or 2 big games, but he's a field stretcher. And that's the same thing with Justin Hall. So when we look at Tyron Johnson, he played a lot last preseason. He played well. He caught 9 of 15 targets. He's 6'1", 193 pounds, and he's been receiving a lot of praise in camp. He's also going to be battling a similar player in Justin Hall, who is a rookie this year. He's a UDFA out of Ball State. Another small guy. He's 5'9", 186 pounds, but he is also a guy that has very good deep speed. So I think those two could be battling tonight and get some looks because they are looking at that situational field stretcher role, kind of like that JJ Nelson role where you're not talking about a full-time player, but they get on the field once in a while to take the top off the defense. Those are 2 of my favorite players to look at right now for Las Vegas.
Do you care to stack run a wide receiver with quarterback in a spot like this? Like, cause you and I have done countless showdown slates, and generally speaking, if you have 2 wide receivers from a team, you'd like to have that quarterback. Do you care about that today?
No, I don't. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, again, negative correlation and correlation in general isn't a huge concern. There's obviously going to be a little bit, like if Justin Hall catches a bomb from Nick Mullins or whoever it is, Garbers.
Yeah.
Garber, you're probably going to want Garbers too, but not necessarily, because you have Luton on the other side, who's certainly going to be playing more than Garbers and be getting more opportunities. So it's not that 1-for-1 battle because of the snaps.
That's the problem. You don't even know when your guy's out there if the quarterback that you've rostered is going to be on the field. So
yeah, that is a problem.
Yeah, that's an issue. Yeah. All right. And then we'll recap this once we get past wide receiver to make it easier for you guys. Maybe you're just diving in. And Matt, by the way, we have about 1,000 people watching tonight for a Hall of Fame preseason game. People just love football, dude.
Dude, I miss football. I had a month without the USFL. You weren't a fan of the USFL. I wasn't the biggest fan myself, but I like gambling on it, and at least gave me something to watch in June. So I'm glad August is here, and I'm glad we have some football to watch.
Man, I tried, and there was even a Philadelphia team, but the problem is there's no actual team from any. It's like they all play in Birmingham, and I know they're changing this as they should. there's no way that you can root for a team just because there's a name on it. Like if they played in Philly, tickets are $10. All my buddies live around the stadium. I make hey, you want pregame and go watch the Philadelphia Stars? That could be fun. But they're playing in Birmingham. What do I don't know who half of these guys are anyway. So it was tough to get into it. But like you said, from a DFS and betting perspective, that's how I was with the what was the XFL. I loved the XFL for betting. Absolutely loved it. And then we got shut down from COVID.
That was a shame. Speaking of the USFL, there is a USFL player on the Raiders. It's Isaiah Zuber. He's a guy that actually has
nice transition.
Nice work. Not a pro like you, but I'm working on it.
That was a good segue. Go ahead.
He actually played a decent amount with New England before he moved over to the USFL. He caught 6 to 9 targets last preseason with the Patriots. I think he's another player we could see tonight, along with DJ Turner, who's another UDFA from 2021 out of Pitt. He's a little more your possession style receiver playing in the slot, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You kind of have this dichotomy where I think Las Vegas is evaluating that situational field stretcher, but then you have DJ Turner, who's going to play a lot for this team, and he plays in the slot. Last year, he was very reliable in the preseason, caught 11 of 13 targets. Sometimes in these preseason showdown slates, you don't need the guy that's going to take the top off for one big play. You'd love to see DJ Turner, that archetype of player, get 4 targets, catch all 4, get 30 yards. Boom, 7 points. That's great for the preseason. We don't need the 30-point score to win our tournaments. So I think Turner and Zuber are viable as well, right behind Hall and Tyron Johnson. Those are the top 4. And if you're playing GPPs, you can include Jordan Veazey. I don't think he gets a ton of run. And Matt Collins, again, I don't think he gets a ton of run because he's a veteran. We kind of already know what he is.
Where are you going to get better info than that? All right. We can flip this to the other side too, but let's hit a couple super chats. I don't want to pretend I didn't see them. I just forget sometimes. First off, welcome to the team, Jackie. New Awesemo member. Badge looks sexy. And then you've got Picasso TV. First super chat of the NFL season. I don't have a question. I just want to hear Laffy say y'all. Told you, man. Up here, we don't say y'all. I can't say it without feeling wildly uncomfortable. You say y'all? Do you refer to people as y'all?
I just went to Tennessee last week for my little preseason vacation before the preseason. Everyone was saying y'all. It threw me off too. I live in Wisconsin. Very far up north here. You don't hear anybody saying y'all.
Oh, right. Hey, y'all. Can't do it. I can't do it. Hey, y'all want to go? Can't do it. Can't do it. It does save time, but it's just not for me. Anyway, thanks for the super chat. Jackie Treehorn also have nothing to say. Just happy Laffy back. Hey, appreciate you, man. And then Rosso Music. What's up, guys? Any underneath receivers? That's an interesting question. So he's basically saying, like, do we have any guys that can give us that 4 for 44?
Yeah, DJ Turner's your guy. I think he's the primary candidate to handle that role. We even saw it from him last year. He's a UDFA out of Pitt, but he has 1 preseason under his belt, and he played a ton. He was over 30 snaps in each of those games, caught 11 of 13 balls, just 77 scoreless yards. So he's kind of your direct backup for Renfro on this team. Practice squad level guy, but I think he's probably asked to do the same stuff. And again, we're not expecting to see Renfro.
Hold on. Rimpack just sent us some. Fuck.
Do we get inactives?
No, we got severe weather and fans being told to seek shelter. That's what we got.
I saw a little bit of that in the chat. I haven't seen the weather, but if they're going to delay it, it makes you wonder, like, is it going to pass? I don't know.
Yeah, probably. I mean, usually with these thunderstorms, at least the ones we've been getting lately, they come and go, 30 minutes or less. Let's hope. Adam was on the deeper dive today, and I tuned in, and I heard this thunder just crack outside of his window. Like you could clearly hear it from outside of his window. He said the storm was horrible. So I don't know. We'll pay attention to it. It makes no difference right now, Matt, right? Like we're going to make our lineups. We're going to place our bets. We're going to do the same thing we would if there wasn't severe weather, because they're not going to play through this. They'll wait till it's over.
And the slate's going to lock at the same time, no matter what. It's not like they delay the slate for weather.
But what I'm saying, in like a preseason, the Hall of Fame game, they're going to wait till they're clear. Like they're not going to play in garbage conditions. So we don't have to worry, in my opinion, at least, about being like, well, I think it'll be a run heavy approach now. And the wind is getting better. Like, I think that's less of a concern than it would be in the regular season. Would you agree?
100% agree.
Okay. Yeah. Just so people don't make any rash decisions here. All right. let's talk about Jacksonville. By the way, hit that thumb. We're almost at 200 thumbs up. We just hit 1,000 people concurrent watching today. I say it all the time. It's been a while, but you guys are the best. Appreciate you. You make doing this a lot of fun. But yeah, let's get to 200. Shit, let's get to 250. Let's be a little aggressive here. Let's get to 200 likes. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Atone for your sins. All right, Jacksonville, Jaguars. Fun bringing the old stuff back out of the bag. Jacksonville Jaguars. Christian Kirk's out. Marvin Jones is out, right?
Yep. Zay Jones.
Agnew's out.
Agnew.
Okay. Zay Jones, Agnew, Christian Kirk,
Marvin Jones.
Marvin Jones. Right. And who?
Top 5.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm telling you, Doug Peterson does not care. Like, even if these guys are a little bit, maybe he got bump and bruise, doesn't care. It shouldn't. Like, how much work does Laquan Treadwell get today?
I don't think he gets a ton. Like, this is a guy that played meaningful snaps for this team last year, and he's not going to be asked to play as many because of the free agent signings they made. But he's locked into the wide receiver 5 right now, unless he gets significantly outplayed by one of these guys we're going to talk about. So last year we saw Treadwell 23 snaps, 27 snaps, 26 snaps when he was fighting for a roster spot, which I think he's locked up. I think he's probably more in that 15 range, around 15 snaps, somewhere in there, which you're going to find receivers that play more than him, certainly, but he'll be on the field a little bit.
All right. Who's going to be on the field a lot?
There's 2 guys that have been receiving a ton of hype, and Jacksonville's had a little bit better beat reporting than some of these other teams. We've actually gotten the wide receiver quarterback pairings from training camp from Jacksonville. So we have a pretty good idea who these guys have been playing and practicing with. There's 2 guys that have been kind of ascending up these practice squad depth charts in receiving groups. One's Luwan Winningham, and he started really low for this team because he was an FCS prospect. He was an undrafted free agent this year out of Central Arkansas. He's actually on a couple CFB DFS slates. For those of you guys that play, you probably know who he is. He's a big receiver, 6'3", 198 pounds, caught 42 balls last year. But again, he got a little bit of reps with the Trevor Lawrence group at the end of the week. He's actually in play for the wide receiver 6 of this team if they keep one. Their beat reporter projection had this coming down to Winningham versus Cotton. So I think this is a battle we see play out through the preseason, and Winningham's probably a guy that gets a lot of snaps. The other guy that we just mentioned, Jeff Cotton, he's been with the team for a while now. He was actually a UDFA out of Idaho in 2020. Last year, he played in 3 preseason games. He got around 80 snaps overall, but he's been a guy that they've developed and kept around on the practice squad. Again, he's another guy that's mostly been working with Luton, but towards the beginning of this week, we saw him thrust up with that Lawrence group for portions of practice. So I very much believe these are 2 guys we're going to see a lot of tonight, and they're guys that are probably going to be battling throughout the preseason.
How many points in the captain spot do you think wins a tournament tonight?
20, 25.
20? 25?
Yeah.
So 15 actual points?
15 actual points is phenomenal.
All right. All right. I mean, I guess it's doable. And it feels like defense would get us there.
A lot of times defense will get you there. Like, some of these GPP winning preseason scores are ridiculous.
They're insane. And by scores, you mean ridiculously low.
Yes. Like, I can pull up some I've won from previous preseasons, but I know for sure I had one with a sub 20 point win in the captain spot.
I believe it. Last year was what, 16-3 or something. So that was the final score of last year's Hall of Fame game. So, and is there anybody else a wide receiver worth talking about?
Yeah, this is going to be pretty condensed, I think, for Jacksonville. So they're definitely evaluating Winningham and Cotton, but you kind of have Marvin Hall there. I don't think we're going to see a ton of him because he's a huge veteran. He's been working exclusively with the Luton group. Tim Jones is kind of right on the fringe of that Winningham Cotton group. He's a 2021 UDFA, and he's a guy that didn't play at all last preseason, but he's been also working with Luton. They gave him a couple snaps with the Lawrence group, not as many as Cotton and Winningham, but that's also promising. The last guy I will mention that I think could get some decent run is Kevin Austin. He's a guy that needs a little more work. He's been playing with Luton and Sloter, so this isn't the biggest review for him. Like, you definitely don't like to see him with the Sloter group, but he's a guy that's 6'2", 200 pounds, but he ran a 4.43 40-yard dash, which is potentially worth developing. Again, he's a UDFA this year, so he could just be a guy that needs more time. It actually took him a long time to produce at Notre Dame, kind of a red flag there, but he ended up scoring 7 touchdowns, 888 yards, and just 48 catches. So you can see the speed really shining through with Austin. If I were to rank these Jags receivers, it would be Winningham 1, Cotton 2, Jones 3, Kevin Austin 4.
Okay. So to recap, we have that. And then I know you mentioned it already, but again, makes it easier for people because a lot of people forget these names given that they don't know who they are. And I don't blame you. Favorite Oakland, favorite Las Vegas receivers.
Be Justin Hall 1, Tyron Johnson 2, DJ Turner 3, Zuber 4.
And is there any considerable separation there? It's probably important, right? Like, is there any real separation in terms of preference for you for ranking these receivers on each side?
They're very closely projected. Okay. When I was in Fantasy Cruncher today, I used quite a bit more randomness than I normally use when I'm using crunches to try to get multiple of these guys and not just have clumps of the highest projected one, even if it's by like 0.2 points. So this is really volatile. Even the snaps are volatile. If one guy plays well, you could see his snaps suddenly shoot up. Like one of these guys in the battle, let's use Cotton and Winningham, for example. If like Winningham goes out there and has a drop, you could see him like brought to the bench and then Cotton gets extra snaps. There's so much volatility in these projections tonight.
It's crazy too to think that Daniel Carlson could hit a 50-yarder and a 30-yarder and be in the optimal for sure, like easy. Are they going to be kicking 50-yarders though? Or will you think we'll just see more times than not, they'll just go for it?
I think with Carlson, you'll probably see a decent amount. Again, I think McDaniel's going to treat this a little more like a real game. So as long as it's not like a 55-yarder, I think you do probably see him out there kicking field goals. It's also a safer play too. You mentioned like trying not to get your guys hurt. I don't really think you want like the punt coverage team out there too much, like running in these high injury risk scenario plays. So I'm not really expecting any sort of pullback on the kicking opportunities we'd see in a normal game. And Carlson, he's playing out there by himself with the Raiders. There's no kicking battle we have at all. He's going to get every opportunity to kick.
Yes.
I mean, like extra points, he gets a piece of every single score on the field, which is huge because there's not many.
Josh Gillum said, do they even attempt to kick in this weather? That's the thing. Like the weather might clear up. I'm going to pull the radar up now. While I do this, speaking of the Raiders, do you remember the 76-yard attempt from Sebastian Janikowski?
Yes. Maybe the most ridiculous thing that's ever happened on a football field.
It wasn't even remotely close.
I'm going to try to think of something more ridiculous, but I think that might be the dumbest thing of it. That was Lane Kiffin that did that.
Wasn't it at least at the end of the half though?
I think so.
I'm almost certain it was.
I can't remember for sure. All I remember is that Lane Kiffin was the guy that tried to get him to do that.
What a horrible decision, especially if you can catch that and return it.
They tried to. I don't think it amounted to anything, but they definitely had a guy back there who caught it.
Did he? If I recall correctly, I thought the ball just went like this.
Maybe it went back. I was very young when that play happened. Maybe he didn't catch it, but they definitely had a guy back there who tried to. That was the plan at least.
It's great. All right, so I just pulled the radar up. Mike, you should pull that up and thrown it on the screen, bro.
Shout out to Weather Channel.
I
think we'll sponsor live before lock.
It's gonna be. It's a little dicey. I don't see a ton of severe weather here, but it looks like it's going to go on for a little while. We'll see. We'll see if it clears up. Anyway, like I said, doesn't matter. We're going to do the same thing we always do. They talk tight end position. Like how valuable or viable is tight end? Is this the least valuable position for preseason by far?
Yes, without a doubt.
Okay.
It's not even close.
Okay.
When you look at tight end overall, they score on average 1.6 points per game. The next closest is wide receiver at 2.9.
Okay, real quick. CS said we're running out of time. We hit on all of the important. Why wouldn't have done you guys dirty like that? As Matt just said, tight ends not very valuable at all. So just run through them, or actually flip this. Defenses. Raiders and Jacksonville. I like the Raiders defense tonight quite a bit. I think both of them are viable. I think Carlson's viable. There's just not to steal your thunder here, no pun intended, but to get through this, there is the Jacksonville kicking. There's a battle for Jacksonville. I don't see any reason why you would want to take one of those kickers, right?
Elliott Fry's not even in the player pool, so
right.
Ryan Santoso is, but he's going to be he'll kick half of the opportunities tonight, and Fry will have the other half. So I don't have any Santoso.
All right. And defenses, any additional thoughts? Because like you said, it's a very important position, but we kind of know what to do.
Yeah, Vegas kind of shows us how we should be approaching these. The Raiders are favored. They're the team trying a little harder in the game. I think you can slightly prefer them, but it's very close, and defense very volatile.
All right. Should we talk tight ends here? Like, are there guys that, I know there was one in your article that you said seems to profile more as a pass catching tight end. So I guess he's worth talking about, but are they just going to be blocking most of the time?
Yep. There's going to be 4 active tight ends for both these teams. That's horrific. You need guys that are going to be playing like over half the snaps, and we just don't have that. If you're going to take a shot, Jesper Horsted is your guy for Las Vegas. He's actually a pass catcher, played a little bit with the Bears because of injuries. On a Thanksgiving game, he caught a touchdown way back when. And then if you're looking to the Jaguars, I'd play Luke Farrell. He's kind of a back end tight end guy that they could be evaluating. He played a ton last year in the preseason, but he blocked on about half of them. So you're really rolling the dice if you play these guys.
All right. So we got a few minutes here. Want to talk a little bit of just like roster construction or lineup construction?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. How cool are we with just not playing quarterbacks in some of these lineups? Like, I would assume it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, I think it's fine. Again, they're the 3rd highest scoring position on average, but it's very close. So like kickers on average are scoring 5 points. Quarterbacks are scoring 4.7, running backs 3.5. So there's not a lot of wiggle room between these. And in crazy scenarios where like your QB throws a pick 6 or something, your defense is going to shoot way up there. Your kicker is going to have an opportunity for an extra point. And then if your running backs just end up being the one scoring the touchdowns, you could see one quarterback being optimal or maybe even 0. I think it's crazier in regular season to see quarterbacks not being optimal. And in preseason showdown, you see anything.
We had a super chat too. Can you play Jake Luton and Nick Mullins in the same lineup?
Yeah, I have a little bit of that in my builds. Not a ton, but I do have some.
Okay. And I'll take some questions here. We got a few minutes to go. I'll ask you one more though. If you are building out a lineup and you're taking one from each position, okay? So we already know kickers, Carlson, but you're taking a quarterback. This is just to give people an idea of how you're prioritizing positions. Who would it be? Or let's go 2 from running back, 2 from wide receiver, 1 at quarterback.
Quarterback's Luton. Defense is going to be Las Vegas just because they're projected to be a little bit higher scoring. I'm sorry, just looking at Twitter too.
You're good. You're good. If you need me to talk, let me know. It's fine.
No, it looks like Britton Brown and Zamir White are likely to play. It's the most recent news I have. So if that makes running back, Snoop Connor would be the guy I look at most. For receiver, it's Lawan Winningham, and I'm not playing any tight ends.
All right. That's easy enough. All right. Any update on Zamir White? Yeah, Matt, we think so. Brent got Carlson at captain.
Playing a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's entirely fine.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable as well. It's just very, very low scoring games. Blitz, what's up? Said you guys are effing awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Blitz.
So much. She said that, but thank you to you so much as well. Josh said, I like Walter.
Walter has a lot of upside. We just don't know how much Brown and Zamir are going to play. There's a chance he could go really underowned.
Yeah. I mean, what if they don't play a lot and he plays a whole half? Like, what if they play a quarter each and he plays a half? Is that possible?
Yeah, I'm playing a lot of Walter too. He's in my cash lineup.
Is he?
Yeah.
I love that you're playing cash for Showdown Hall of Fame.
I didn't used to do that. And last year, Eric Lindquist, he won 100% of his head-to-heads. And I was like, I'm just going to play GPPs. And he just played the Awesemo at the time. It's now the Stokastic Optimal. And he won every single head-to-head.
I love it. Is there any legitimacy to going with like a Kyle Slaughter, doesn't matter. We'll never hear from him again, or any of the non-Jake Luton and Nick Mullins, not a captain, just in general.
Yeah, Slaughter's fine. He could play a quarter and a half, I think. And then Garbers runs a lot. So even in a quarter, if Garbers gets like 30 rushing yards, that's fine. So I am playing a little Slaughter, a little bit of Garbers. I don't have a lot of Stidham. I don't think we see a ton of him, just a little bit. So to answer your question, the most I have is still definitely Luton and Slaughter, but I'm mixing in mostly Garbers and a little bit of Slaughter.
Okay. Well, hey, that'll do it for us. Appreciate you guys. This has been fun. Football's back, kind of, sort of. It's back enough. That's all we need to know. Hit Matt up at Matt_Gajeski on the Twitters. I'm telling you, man, check out all of his articles that he does for the preseason. Has a ton of college football stuff out already. Going to have a whole lot more in the coming weeks. I'm going to be doing betting content for the preseason. We're on it tonight. Odds Shopper. It's going to be fun. Let's hope this weather clears up. Appreciate you guys, as always, for hanging out, and we'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace.